you are obviously very well known as a singer-songwriter, but you're also sort of a politician, and you've been involved in Labour politics, if I can put it that way, for the last 30 years, I'd say. And indeed, back in 97, I think, 25 years ago, I think you were put on an official commission by the new government, the Blair government, to look at how to reform the House of Lords. That's right, isn't it?
Not quite. I gave evidence to the Wakeham Commission.
That was it.
Were taking evidence from people with their suggestions to reform the House of Lords, and I came up with an idea, and I went and talked to them about it. And they did kind of use aspects of it in the final recommendations.
And your idea is proportional representation, the second chamber.
Yes, but indirectly election. So basically, dividing all of the seats in the reformed second chamber in direct proportion to all of the votes cast in the general election. So on election day, you get both a House of Commons and a House of Lords.
And did that has that idea ever been taken up by others? Has it died a death, or did it live on as people campaigned for Lords reform?
But it kind of, as Lords reform waxed and waned and disappeared and went away again, it went into abeyance. But whenever it comes up, whenever people talk about it, they always say it can't happen because you can't have an elected second chamber that challenges the primacy of the House of Commons. And my suggestion, which is a form of indirect election, would give us a chamber that is legitimate and a genuine reflection of the will of the people, but because it's indirectly elected, it couldn't challenge the primacy of the House of Commons.
And I think you said it should be accompanied by a written constitution that kind of made it very clear that its powers were limited.
Indeed, obviously, it would need very strict rules. A lot of the Salisbury Convention, which the House of Lords sticks to, which says that they can't shoot down any manifesto commitment made by a government that's won an election, that would have to be codified, I think.
And have you talked to Keir Starmer about his proposals now with Gordon Brown to change the House of Lords?
I've been on tour with Paul Heaton and Jackie Abbott, and we talk about...
That's Paul Heaton from the beautiful South, just to be clear.
Yeah, we talk about Lords reform all the time in the catering before we...
That's what I've heard. Do you talk about it on stage?
No, not really. Terribly hard to write a song about it, Lords reform. I'll be perfectly honest with you. There are lots of other issues to address. Reform of the House of Lords is best left to... I did write a pamphlet. Will that do?
Yeah. I think the only other pamphlet I've written by someone was Joe Jackson promoting smoking, which I still have.
Well, I'm not getting involved in that.
But because you've waxed and waned a bit with the Labour Party. I mean, you backed Jeremy Corbyn, but you've come back to Keir Starmer now. You're fully behind him.
I voted for him in the leadership election. And, I'm hoping that we will get a Labour government next time. The numbers look good, but you never know, between now, what might happen between now and 2024. But I'm hoping that we might get in a Labour government that wants to take hold of the situation we find ourselves in, a government that's willing to be radical. And one of the things that really is important, I think, is giving voters a sense of agency over their lives. I think that's what people have been missing. They say, Lords reform isn't really top of anyone's list of wishes, but it does give people more belief in the fact that their vote can make a difference. And if the Lords are constituted by nations and regions, so each nation or region of England, there are 9 regions in England, would have 25 members. You could build on that with perhaps also with regional assemblies. And if those regional assemblies had the kind of powers that the Holyrood government has in Scotland, then you could really bring decision making much, much closer to people. And I think that would be very positive thing.
I mean, one of the great things for someone like me who's now on the Lord's gravy train is it's impossible to reform the House of Lords because nobody can ever agree on the alternative. I mean, I always say the only way to reform the House of Lords is to abolish the House of Lords. But one other thing I think very strongly is that the more people talk about an alternative to the Lords, they miss, as it were, the low-hanging fruit. I mean, you could reform the Lords tomorrow in terms of some of the issues that really niggle people. You could introduce a retirement age, which I think if you had it at 75 would reduce the size by about a third. You could stop replacing hereditary peers when they pass on or resign. You could reduce the number of bishops. You could limit the number of peers that could be appointed in any 1 year by a prime minister and opposition parties. I mean, you could do lots of things that could change it.
Yeah, but the elephant in the room is, Ed, how did you end up in the House of Lords, mate?
That's a secret, Billy.
You see, and there's your problem. There's your problem. not about all those other people. It's about you and how you got your seat in the House of Lords through patronage.
Yes.
And people
I'm just saying, Billy, you won't reform the Lords if you go with a big idea. The way to do it is incrementally, slowly chip away at some of its most egregious features.
I don't know if you're familiar with the Salisbury Convention.
Well, we talk about little else in the House of Lords tea room.
Yeah, if it's a manifesto commitment by Keir Starmer, I think it will be possible to reform the Lords within a parliament.
Have you ever been offered a peerage?
Yeah.
When was that?
I can't tell you.
Why did you say no?
Because I'm a poacher, not a gamekeeper. And I don't, everybody I know or I ever talked about this subject, yourself included, back in the day, where have they ended up?
What about, if you had become Lord Bragg, what would you have been Lord Bragg of?
I would like to be Lord Bragg of Elpis. So people could call me Lord Elpis.
Yeah, I've heard that one before. Lord Bragg of Barking, that's what you would be.
No, I don't think so. I don't think that's really not my cup of tea. Politics is too important to be left to politicians. And, I wouldn't want to go in the House of Lords because my appointment wouldn't be transparent. We need transparency, we need representation, and we need people to feel that they have more agency over their lives. And patronage is not the way to do that, I'm afraid.
So do you think are you going to do a music tour for Keir Starmer in the run-up to the election?
I don't think he needs it, really. I mean, politics has changed hugely since Red Wedge. Music is no longer the vanguard of youth culture in many ways. Back in the day, music was our only social medium. Everything young people thought about had to go through that medium because it's all we had. Now people have lots of different ways of engaging, and young people are much smarter than we were, than the way that they utilise social media to organise. And so, music plays a part. Music has a role to play in convincing people the world can be changed, but people organising is how the world changes. And I think young people are really good at doing that on social media.
Now, I don't want you to take Matt Hancock seriously, but one of the points that he did say as his excuse for going on I'm a Celebrity was he felt it was a different way to engage with people. So I'm quite interested in this. You did Red Wedge. You were probably in your early 30s when you were doing Red Wedge. And as you say, music at that time was probably a good way to engage. And obviously music in the 80s was highly political, which I'm going to come on to in a minute. But now, what do you think is the best way to kind of motivate young people in particular to engage and to vote? Because, we've seen to our cost with things like Brexit, what happens when young people don't vote. I mean, if you were, for the sake of argument, the head of communications for the Labour Party in the run-up to the next election, what kind of things would you be thinking about in terms of how to engage the voters?
Well, I think you have to, as I say, you have to make people believe that the politics you're espousing are going to change their lives. I mean, one of the things that was attractive to people about Brexit, I think, is that it was one vote for one issue, and that was settled once that vote was taken. So many people engaged in that. So it needs, you need to be making sure that your policies reach out to everybody, not just people in marginal constituencies, not just the pensioners who always vote, but you have to show young people how things are going to be different for them. And there's so much competition out there now for their interests. It's a tough one.